Welcome to this question. You have 15 minutes to read the question, and they indicate all amounts include value-added tax unless indicated otherwise. Mr. Thompson and his family went on regular breaks to the Foldam Marina. During 2001, Mr. Thompson identified a piece of land and developed a resort on the land. This became a well-known holiday resort with untamed nature, which is enclosed within the majestic mountains and bordering the tranquil Foldam. Misty Bay, mostly a conservation area itself, is surrounded by national conservation areas, which is regulated by the Gauteng Tourism Authority. Therefore, as guiding principle of the resort, vacationers are required to return nature untouched after each valued holiday experience. Misty Bay Limited, who developed the resort, has a 31 December financial year end and is listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. Misty Storage. Since 1 July 2018, Misty Bay supplies storage facilities to regular vacationers. Majority of the vacationers are either camping or renting self-catering accommodation. Vacationers use the storage facilities to store caravans, boats, or smaller holiday accessories. These facilities allow vacationers to travel with more ease. The storage facilities consist of 15 20-feet shipping containers. All containers are leased for 12 months. Whereafter the lessee has the option to extend the lease for another 12 months. Right, immediately we are able to identify that this is IFRS 16 and that Misty Bay is our lessor. Remember, our lessor will have to recognize this, one, either as a finance lease or two, an operating lease. Misty Bay offers the first 3 months of all new contracts free of charge. This is important. The monthly lease payment amounts to 240 Rand per container and is payable in arrears, therefore at the end of each month. On 1 July 2018, all 15 containers were leased to vacationers who indicated that they want to lease the containers for 12 months only. However, on 30 June 2019, all 15 lease contracts were renewed for another 10 months with a 10% increase in the monthly fee payable. The benefits obtained from the lease transaction is consistent throughout the duration of the lease period. You may assume that all of the lessees paid their accounts on their respective due dates. Misty Bay depreciates the 20-feet shipping containers, which are utilized for their own storage purposes on the straight line method over 10 years. Misty Bay is a registered VAT vendor and is liable to pay VAT when the customer has been invoiced. Important. Mabo Plains. Mr. Mabus is a regular vacationer at the Foldam and founder as well as Chief Executive Officer of Mabo Plains Limited. Mabo Plains. Mabo Plains recently listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange and has a 31 December financial year end. Mr. Mabus's wife is not a shareholder or part of the management of Mabo Plains. Okay guys, when we look at this, immediately think about IS24 related parties. Right, they indicate to us, to his dismay, she is too well accustomed with having her way. She convinced her husband to persuade Misty Bay to build an airfield next to the resort as she found the travel by road too exhausting. On 1 May 2018, Mr. Mabus transferred 74,750 from a Mabo Plains bank account to Misty Bay to assist Misty Bay with the building of the airfield. Even though it is not truly in line with the guiding principles of the resort, The directors of Misty Bay evaluated the economic value it will add to the resort and continued with the development of the airfield without necessarily considering any possible regulations of the Gauteng Tourism Authority or the effect it may have on other stakeholders of Misty Bay. Misty Bay completed the building of the airfield on 30 July 2018 at a cost of $780,000 excluding VAT, guys. Right, now when we look at this, we have Marble Plains and we have Misty Bay. The airfield is were completed by Misty Bay. However, Marble Plains provided this 74750. Right, Misty Bay and Marble Plains signed a contract for the 10 years lease of the airfield, which will commence on 1 August 2018. The contract contained a clause that Misty Bay has the option to terminate the lease earlier without any cost payable to Marble Plains. The contract also indicates that Marble Plains has the responsibility and any associated risk to restore the area at the end of the useful life of the airfield, or earlier should the contract be terminated prior to the end of the lease term. Okay guys, again, we need to identify that this is an IFRS 16 contract, and we have our lessor, which is Misty Bay. Misty Bay will have to recognize a finance lease or an operating lease, and we have our lessee, which will be Marble Plains. Marble Plains will have to recognize the right of use of the asset and a lease liability. In addition to the $74,750, Marble Plains has to pay a monthly payment amounting to $12,710. The $74,750 payment received from Marble Plains will be a payment in advance for the lease of the airfield. Marble Plains estimated on 1 August 2018 that it will cost the company $300,000 excluding VAT to restore the area in 10 years' time, and correctly accounted for the decommissioning liability at $110,822. Remember, this is the IFRS 1 costs. Since Marble Plains was unable to calculate the rate implicit in the lease, the company utilized its incremental borrowing rate of 10% compounded monthly to calculate its lease liability relating to the lease contract. Nature-loving vacationers both at Misty Bay as well as neighboring conservation areas were unsettled with the airfield, mainly due to the accompanying noise they had to endure. On 30 December 2019, the Gauteng Tourism Authority informed Misty Bay that the land on which the airfield was built formed part of a protected area, and by law, Misty Bay was not authorized to develop this piece of land. Guys, immediately think about IS 37, a possible provision. There's an obligation that they will have to restore this piece of land. Misty Bay immediately appointed experts in the field to oppose the matter in the upcoming court case on 2 January 2020. However, on 1 February 2020, the court indicated that Misty Bay indeed had to restore the area to its original condition, but permitted Misty Bay the further use of the airfield for another 2 years to allow Misty Bay sufficient time to rebuild the airfield on another legitimate piece of land. Right guys, now there is a change in the useful life of this asset. Remember, originally it was 10 years. Now they are able to use this for a further 2 years. Important to identify this. Okay. Misty Bay informed Marble Plains of the outcome of the court case on 1 February 2020. Misty Bay had no intention to rebuild the airfield due to the negative response the company received from vacationers. On that date, Marble Plains determined that its lease liability, remember this is now in the records of Marble Plains, Lease liability with regards to the lease contract of the airfield will decrease with 468,790 excluding VAT. The lease liability will decrease. This is a modification due to the decreased lease term of 2 years, and the estimated that it will cost the company 250,000 Rand excluding VAT to restore the area in 2 years' time. Therefore, we need to determine what is the present value of this 250,000 and compare this to the original IFRS 1 costs determined. Misty employee costs. Annual leave. It is the practice of Misty Bay to increase the employees' gross salaries and consequently the total cost to company with 7% on an annual basis. The annual increase is effective on 1 January each year. The leave pay accrual on 31 December 2018 amounted to 2,790,720. Therefore, this will be an opening balance for 20.19, of which 1,016,280 was paid out in cash during the year ended 31 December 20.19. The number of working days per year is 260 days. The leave cycle ends each year on 31 December. The tariff that will be used to measure the leave pay accrual when employees are expected to be absent during the leave days will be based on the cost to company for the I just want to highlight this to the cost to company for the employees. The following information relates to the employees of the company for the financial year ended 31 December 2019. Number of employees 200. Average gross salary 384,000. Average cost to company 418,000. Annual leave entitled per employee 25 days. Annual leave taken during the current year per employee from the current year's entitlement 15 days. Therefore, we are looking at a remaining 10 days. These employees can carry forward any annual leave days not taken during the year to the following year. Any annual leave days not taken by the end of the following year will be paid out in cash at the end of that year. Based on past experience, 60% of the unused annual leave days at the end of each financial year will be utilized, therefore will be used. If it is used, you know that we will have to provide for cost to company rate. It is expected that none of these employees will resign before the end of 31 December 2020. No journal entries have been posted yet with regard to the leave pay accrual for the year ended 31 December 2019. Additional information. The directors of the Misty Bay authorized the company's financial statements on 28th February 2020. Therefore, guys, think about your principles of IAS 10. Misty Bay has been profitable in the past and the company expects to be profitable in the nearby future. Marble Plains measures right of use assets according to the cost model and depreciates these assets on the straight line method. Marble Plains also presents its right of use assets separately in the statement of financial position. Okay guys, so what does this mean? Remember, IFRS 16 allows us to include in our PPE note an additional column, right of use of asset. But they indicate to us that in the records of Marble Plains prefer to have a separate line item on the statement of financial position that indicates right of use of an asset, and therefore a separate note to support this right of use of the asset. And this is not included in our PPE note. You may assume that the normal income tax rate is 18% and VAT is charged at 15%. Both Misty Bay and Marble Plains are registered VAT vendors. Assume that all amounts are material. Alright, let's have a look at the requirement. The first opportunity when you are allowed to write, please allocate the number of minutes to each section. Remember, this is the marks times 1.5, and this is the minutes that you are allowed to spend on each section. Therefore, when we look at requirement A, 15 marks, 22.5 minutes, round this down. Guys, remember, you need to practice this at home. B, 7 marks, 10.5 minutes. C, 18 minutes, and D, 9 minutes. Right, now let's briefly read through each requirement section. A, supply the journal entries to account for the rental income as well as related tax entries with regard to the Misty Storage operating lease in the financial records of Misty Bay Limited for the financial year ended 31 December 2019. Please note, journal narrations are not required and show one cumulative journal entry for monthly recurring journals. One cumulative. Therefore, what they want you to do is they want you to add the monthly journals into a total and include only one journal entry. B, briefly discuss how the outcome of the court case will affect the financial statements of Misty Bay Limited for the year ended 31 December 2019. Guys, theory question. Remember, you need to identify the theory, you need to apply your theory, and you need to conclude. You will not receive any marks if you purely state your theory. You have to apply the theory to receive marks, and you will have to identify that this is your IS 10 and there might be IS 37 principles as well. C, disclose the right of use asset with regard to the lease contract for the lease of the airfield from Misty Bay Limited in the financial records of Marble Plains Limited for the year ended 31 December 2019. Remember, principles in terms of IFRS 16. Please note, comparative figures are required. This is important. Therefore, we need to include our 20.19 figures as well as 20.18. Narrative information is not required. Now, what is the narrative information? Remember, at the end of your note, normally we will write a few additional details in terms of the rights of use of our asset. Now, this is not required. Then D, prepare the journal entries of Misty Bay Limited to account for the employee benefit expense in the statement of profit or loss for the year ended 31 December 2019. Journal narrations are not required. Ignore any normal income tax implications. Round off all amounts to your nearest rand, and your answer must comply with IFRS. Right, guys, as always, you need to ensure that you understand the requirement. If need be, please plan, briefly think how you are going to attempt each section.